And we're going to go ahead and get started. We do have quorum to go ahead and get started. Hello to everyone I didn't get to speak to this morning. So always rich risings and phenomenal day to everyone. Thank you so very much for being here today as we gather for our February monthly Homeless Planning Commission meeting. Following our phenomenal healing and strategy retreat as chair of the Nashville Davidson County CLC Homeless Planning Council, I'm super honored to share our overarching collective vision for a more transparent, no harm, human-centered, and effectively impactful homeless shelter and prevention system. One of the greatest quotes I heard ring from our retreat was the positive realization that this no longer feels like a social hour, and that this is rooted really in the work and truth. From a lived experience point of view, our goal has always been to integrate and trust in the truest form of our pioneering peer support network of lived experience program and cohort into all of our larger CLC efforts. Confidently knowing this will bring about a collective transformative change. Our peer support network is a brilliant testament to the strength and resilience of individuals who have faced and overcome homelessness and soon poverty to permanent homes. By incorporating our lived experiences, we create a support system that is building leaders on repeat. Our peers bring invaluable insights, understanding, building community trust, and fostering a welcoming environment. One of our dual lived experience chairpersons has developed an actual triage system to deploy cohort members in a healthy manner to all committees, with each within their specific roles. This ensures that we begin to work collaboratively, leveraging our unique strengths and experiences to make a significant Davidson County-wide impact. By working in tandem with our own city, we are building a more inclusive capacity while healing our community. The presence of our peers challenges us to re-examine and improve tattered systems. Our firsthand knowledge identifies gaps, addresses systemic barriers, and implements solutions that truly meets the needs of those we serve. This collaborative approach empowers lived experience and the continuum of care, providing real opportunities for professional, personal growth, and development. It is a true partnership benefiting all committees and the individuals involved. As we move forward, let us all embrace this refreshing initiative with open hearts and minds. By valuing the wisdom and compassion of our peers, we can create a shelter system that uplifts everyone, mainly our unhoused friends. Together, we can make a significant difference in the lives of those we serve and build community where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. Thank you all so very much for your dedication and commitment to this important work. Let's continue to work together, support each other, and make our city a better place for all. As we concluded our retreat, I also wanted to thank each of you for your passion and unwavering commitment. Together, we have taken significant steps towards creating a more inclusive and supportive, effective shelter system. The work we do is not easy, but it is super essential. It requires us to confront challenges, innovate, and remain steadfast in our mission to serve our community. The insights, strategies, and collaborations we have developed here will guide us as we move forward, united in our purpose and celebrating our wins. As we return to our daily responsibilities, let us carry the spirit of our past retreat with us. It reminds us of the power we have when we work together, support each other, and stay true to our mission. Our collective efforts will pave the way for a brighter future for our entire community. Again, thank you for your hard work, perseverance, and unwavering commitment. So that's our welcome for the day into the room. And we're going to take attendance now. And please, when you do answer, make sure your mic is on. And if you have a conflict, please name that. So first, let me see, I got it. I'll go first with myself. Kenetha Patterson is here with no conflicts. Pastor Stephen Handy.
Present. Conflict.
All righty. And let me actually get my pen. All righty. Deidre Nicole Childress. Liz Mallard.
Present, no conflict.
Jamie Villegas.
Conflict.
Thank you. Dr. Exidria Ansley. Okay. India Panjargar. Drew Freeman. Okay. Diana Allen Robb. Michelle Southard.
Present, no conflict.
Andrea Hancock.
Present, no conflict.
Meredith McLeod Jolin. David Langle Martin.
Present, no conflict.
Okay. Councilman Jordan Huffman.
Present, no conflict.
Councilwoman Courtney Johnston. Right here. Councilman John Rutherford.
Here, no conflict.
Okay. And Rico X.
Present. No conflict.
Adam Hansen. Okay. Lizzie Goddard.
Present, no conflict.
Laura Ward. Angie Lawless.
Present, no conflict.
Jaha Martin.
Present, no conflict.
Thank you. And then we have April Calvin, and she's here. And I did see Miss Susie told me back there. And they're the non-voting advisors. So thank you for that. And we're going to do remembrance, and following will be moment of silence for the lives lost out in the community and in the state of homelessness. So we have Jerome Allen Gordon, Charles Roland Marshall, Calvin Eugene Reams, Anita Lynette Ritchie, Ernest Turner Jr., Charles Johnson, Jerry Salazar, Stephen Hines, Jack Phillips Jr., Natasha Jones, John Doe, this person was unnamed, Missy Gouch, Thurston Rucker, Michael Scotty Parker, Jimmy Dean Ashworth, Willie Paul Wyndham, Larry Wade Boyd. And if we could take a moment of silence for these lives lost. And thank you for that. And if we could please review the minutes for our January 2025 meeting. And if anyone has any corrections, just let me know about that. And noting no corrections, we'll move along into the agenda. And that's going to be updates. Office of Homeless Services, Director Calvin, report.
Good morning, everyone. There's a lot going on, so I'm going to try to be brief so we won't be here all day. In your package, you'll see the $50 million report. We've been reporting on this since 2022. So $50 million, $25 million of which went into supportive services, interim gap housing, and then another 25 million actually went into bringing on permanent supportive housing or permanent housing with supportive services. So excited to say that these funds will carry us until mid-2026. Most recent notables here would be the last bit of housing actually came on for the gap financing permanent supportive housing, and that's two new developers. One is Clear Blue Company. They dedicated 10 units to the unhoused population. In total, they're bringing on 238. And then also I Am Next. They are bringing on 120 units of housing in total, dedicated to the unhoused population, but more so focused on youth would be 80. So we're excited to celebrate that. I think total, the 25 million affordable gap loan units was supposed to bring on 120 units dedicated to homelessness, and we exceeded that, which is excellent. 182 units dedicated to homelessness, but access, they can access 930 units total. I also would like to, as we're talking about affordable housing, I would like to acknowledge Councilmember Huffman, who's working with me diligently on options as it relates to permanent supportive housing here in Nashville. Austin, Texas, is a city that brought on an additional 1,200 units of permanent supportive housing in 1 year. And so we're looking to bring a group of the Austin developers, council members, and metro or city government officials to Nashville. One, to share how they were able to do that, to discuss the braiding of their funding stack, and to help encourage that during budget season here at Nashville. So we're excited about that. You'll see in that package towards the last, page 10, it shows that all of these funds have been allocated, which is great because not only is it a comprehensive package, but it also shows the braiding of funding and then a strategic rollout or deployment of the funds as well. So at this point, all the funds have been allocated. We're on target to have them all expensed before the fall of 2026, which is great news because if not, there are ARPA funds and they will be sent back to the local government if not, right? So we want to make sure we're on target with that. I do want to talk a little bit about vouchers here in Nashville. This is the first time, so part of me, we have to celebrate, right? The other part of me is like, it's still not good news, and it is still painful. But we have to celebrate that for the first time ever, we have helped to utilize MDHA's voucher subsidies to the max of their ability. And at this point in time, since October, there's been a couple of them that were on pause, and then we received our last notice yesterday basically saying that even the ones like Mainstream that others could access as well are on pause because our city achieved max utilization. You can't ask for more things as a city or as a state if you don't utilize what you have. And so this is a great opportunity for us to ask for more. For example, the Family Unification Program, the FUP vouchers, they reached max, but they've been in our city for 4 years and had never reached max and did not get a constant bump in an increase. And then this year, MDHA saw that we could utilize them and actually overutilize them, and they put in an RFP to acquire more. So more to come on that. Let's see, talking about budget season, I know that you all are aware Metro and our office is actually going through budget season because of some shortcomings as it relates to voucher systems and other subsidies. Things that we're looking to put in our budget would be like non-traditional rapid rehousing dollars or operating costs and supporting costs for permanent supportive housing. Now, these are all things that we're putting in a budget in order to balance that budget out. I'm not sure of where it'll fall once we get towards the end of budget season, but this is just the beginning. So things that we would use to help recommend the need would be one, where we stand with vouchers and subsidies as it relates to local resources here. Second would be things that Austin, Tennessee, or Texas actually did in order to bring on additional units. So we got a lot of work ahead of us. Also would like to, speaking of funding, I would like to, Adam Hansen is not here, but he wanted us to discuss that Lowe's hometown grant is actually open. I know that there's been several organizations. Pastor Stephen Handy received them in the past. I think the year before that, Room in the Inn received some funding. So it's an open RFP right now. I believe it closes on February 18th-ish. Don't quote me on that, but maybe go to the Lowe's hometown website. We can make sure to share that with you all as well. So whether you all apply or your organization may apply, or something that you can share with others on behalf of our Homeless Planning Council member, Adam Hansen. Also, there's a CTI event, Critical Time Intervention. We've heard from our community that they would like for OHS to help with training as it relates to case management and different philosophies of service delivery to help strengthen and expand capacity. You probably heard from our former chair, Jaha Martin, talking about capacity to serve here in Nashville for the last 2 years while she was the chair. And so these are some things that we're looking to bring on. We have a national leader. Her name is Carolyn Hainsworth. Thank you. Carolyn Hainsworth is going to come and offer that training. That training is hosted by us on February 25th and 26th. We have a new event planner by the name of Kayla Ritchie, that's really helping us because, you know, we're all doing a lot of things here, but helping us to deploy some national level trainings and conferences here in Nashville. Last but not least, well, that's it for now. We have a lot more that we're going to discuss throughout the agenda, so I don't want to give away too much now. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for that, Director Calvin. And we're going to do now the collaborative applicant report, Allison Cantway. And I believe we'll have the point in time count debrief later, so.
All right. Hi, everybody. From the collaborative applicant standpoint, a lot has happened in the last month. So we did receive the COC FY24 funding award amounts on January 17th. So Nashville as a community received a total of $11.8 million, which is a $2.1 million increase from last year. And is the highest amount that was ever awarded. Thank you. We're very excited about that. Almost $12 million coming to services in Nashville. So that is very good news as far as the amount. Unfortunately, there were not any new projects that were funded. The referrals did get quite large increases, really more than we expected. Talking to other collaborative applicants statewide, it seems like that is very common. I think only one of the COCs in Tennessee actually got, everything funded that they asked for, and it was a smaller COC. Other COCs, they saw big increases for their renewals. I think one COC did get a new project funded, but it's because they ranked it above a renewal. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is just that our award is very in line with what we're seeing from all the other COCs throughout the state, that renewals were really funded and new projects were not funded as much. Let's see. The planning grant was passed by Metro Council last Tuesday. So that resolution was to approve Metro as the recipient of the planning grant, which is kind of the final step in the collaborative applicant designation. So that's a very good thing. We are meeting with the HUD field office folks in Knoxville later on today to learn more about like, the back end, how do we get it transferred from this account to that account. But because it's now passed by council, that should be much, much easier. So obviously that grant is moving from MDHA to OHS. MDHA, as everybody knows, is not really part of Metro. They're sort of a quasi-governmental agency. OHS is Metro. So we're working with Metro Legal just to make sure that we're operating that grant within the bounds of the Metro Charter. So we've been working with Derek. There may be some changes in sort of how that money is spent, just because we want to make sure that we're operating in ways that Metro is allowed to operate. And of course, we will give updates on that when we get them. But it's really exciting. The COC voted in November of 2023 to transfer the collaborative applicant, and it just got kind of finalized last week. So it's been a long process. Thank you to Susie Tolme, who has been wonderfully helpful every step of the way. And we're excited for this to move forward.
Thank you, Allison, for that. And next is going to be Homeless Management Information System Report. Hannah.
Hello, everybody. Here is our report that we are looking at. In the month of January 2025, there were 3,270 people who experienced homelessness in Nashville. That was in 2,806 households, 248 families, and 2,558 adult-only households. And over the past 12 months, 10,572 unique people have experienced homelessness in Nashville. Below that, we have our monthly data for the Metro Cold Weather Shelter and the Nashville Rescue Mission. So in January 2025, the Metro Cold Weather Shelter served 1,191 people. It was open most of the month of January. And in HMIS, the Nashville Rescue Mission served 1,662 people. I'm flipping it over. Of the people who experienced homelessness in Nashville in January, 287 or 9% were veterans, 253 or 8% were youth aged 18 to 24, 1,509 or 46% were experiencing chronic homelessness, and 800 were entered into HMIS in the month of January, although a reminder that doesn't mean they just started experiencing homelessness. Additionally, 51% of the people experiencing homelessness were Black and 40% were white, and 62% were men and 37% were women. Onto our housing data, 115 people experiencing homelessness were housed in Nashville in January 2025. That was in 79 households, which was 14 families and 65 adult-only households. And over the past 12 months, 1,902 people experiencing homelessness have been housed in Nashville. Finally, on the last page, in January, we housed 18 veterans, 18 youth aged 18 to 24, 36 people experiencing chronic homelessness, and on average, from when people were entered into HMIS to when they were permanently housed was 127 days. 23 of those households were housed with friends and family permanently, and 11 households in permanent supportive housing, and 11 households with no housing subsidy. The agencies who housed the most households in January were Oasis Center with 17 households, Operation Stand Down with 11, and Room in the Inn with 10. And finally, of the people who were housed in January, 47% were Black and 36% were white, and 53% were men and 45% were women.
Okay, we have a question there.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks again, Hannah. Following up from a data point I pointed out last month around the average time from entry into HMIS to permanent housing. Last month, it was 142 days. This month, it's 127 days. I just want to make a request that we can track that kind of on a scatter plot, similar to how we do just total unhoused individuals. It would be really interesting to see how that goes up and down so we can learn about what we're doing.
Yes, got it. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or concerns on the HMIS report? You could go ahead.
So, wanted to note, I've noticed a kind of a trend on a decrease on the amount of people housed. Does this correlate with the maximum utilization of our vouchers?
There's probably several reasons. Yes, the last few months, we've seen a decrease in the number of people housed. Usually the end of the year, like the holidays, November and December, are lower. So that's sort of a typical pattern. But I do think the utilization of the vouchers probably has something to do with it, because there are not as many vouchers available for us to use to house people because we're already using them all. So we're housing fewer people with vouchers.
Do we know, I think at the retreat, we talked about how the people that came to the cold weather shelter, that we were so busy that not everyone was able to be entered into HMIS. I'm wondering, do we know like what percentage or how many of those we were able to capture out of the 1,191 people?
So everyone was entered into HMIS at cold weather shelter. We may have not gotten 100% of the data we wanted to collect, like detailed information, but we have everyone's like basic information in HMIS.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And if we don't have any other, oh, okay, sorry about that.
I just have a quick question about the methods that are used to collect the data, and particularly the race and ethnicity data. Does it, are there more races that are reported and just not represented, or?
Yes, so there's, I don't remember how many we have, like Asian or Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Middle Eastern, et cetera. The numbers we see in Nashville for those are so small that I usually don't separate them out. Just for like space reasons on the report, it'll be like 12 people out of 3,000. But we do have that and we collect it. And if you wanted it, I could send it to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the data. My question is around mental health. So when someone moves into housing, what are the reinforcements around them so that they don't end up back out in the marketplace? Is that something that you can answer, or do I need to defer that to someone else? Thank you.
Hannah can answer it, but I'll go ahead. We have supportive services on by way of, so there's multiple methods here, I guess is how I'll start. One is we have supportive services on by way of the ARPA funds that go until 2026. So we try to make a really quick marriage by way of CE at Kelsey and Dr. Talley to ensure that when people are housed, that there's some supportive services connected with them by those funds. Another fund that we utilize is the critical time intervention that is now currently with the contributor. And they help with making that marriage happen as well to ensure that housing retention rates are high. And then lastly, a lot of the agencies that's doing the housing, they have rapid rehousing funds or ongoing housing retention efforts that should allow some overlap while they're moving into permanent housing as well. The rapid rehousing dollars is not just paying someone's rent when they recently move out of your program. It's also providing that ongoing case management as well. So multiple ways. I do know that there's a small few of people that may fall out of case management, or housing may be in jeopardy after they've been housed 6 months or longer and still need some ongoing intensive services. That's why that critical time intervention model is really a great model, because it's something that doesn't just end the case management, it helps to provide the next level of case management. How do you connect them to community-based case management like Centerstone or a mental health co-op, or also connecting them to the resources that are in their area. For example, if they need a AA or NA group, critical time intervention is really to help them acclimate into the neighborhood that they recently moved in and to find resources that are around them. Thank you.
Am I able to ask if all of the racial and ethnicity data that's collected is represented where it can be?
You can ask, and I will look into it. Some of the numbers might be so small that I don't want to report it because it might be identifying information. But if they're not, I will add them.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Were there any more thoughts or concerns? Okay. Moving along into Continuum of Care report by Raquel.
Good morning, everyone. So you have before you some Continuum of Care updates. I'll just highlight a few. So next week we will have our first general membership meeting for 2025. The nominating membership committee has worked on planning that meeting. And I will also be sending out a survey to the community either today or tomorrow, asking for input in terms of what would be purposeful at those meetings, what is a good frequency, and other types of questions that the nominating and membership committee wanted to gather input on. And so I'm sure they would like to hear from our Homelessness Planning Council members, especially to understand what might be appealing in terms of getting more HPC members to attend those meetings or feel connected to the general membership. So I wanted to highlight that, and that meeting will be at on next Thursday, February 20th at 10:30 a.m. at the National Rescue Mission's men's campus. So if you haven't made it out there, feel free to connect with me, but we would love to have you attend if you're available. A few things to highlight. So the Performance Evaluation Committee will be meeting next Wednesday. They're really focusing right now on revisiting the reallocation policy. They noticed a few things that might need to change, and the document is supposed to be reviewed on an annual basis. And so they might be coming back to the Homelessness Planning Council in the near future with some suggested amendments. And they're also looking at organizations that fell below 65%, which is the threshold for reallocation in the current policy, to engage with those organizations about improving their performance. And they're also planning to begin outlining potential improvements for the monitoring process, since we do normally begin monitoring organizations in the spring. Let's see. I did want to mention that our Data and HMIS Oversight Committee is aiming to bring back the HMIS Policies and Procedures Manual next month. They'll be meeting not next Monday, the Monday after. The fourth Monday of the month, they'll be meeting to talk about final changes. So if y'all have input, you can either send them to me or Chair Shanley Deignan, or you can attend that meeting, but also obviously your input will be included because you will be voting on the final document. But they are hoping to potentially move forward so that we as a community have a document that aligns with current or future practices. Allison's going to talk a little bit about the point in time count in a minute, so I'm going to skip over that. Shelter Weather Outreach and Prevention is meeting tomorrow. I want to highlight that last month they had a robust conversation about cold weather response, and the goal for this meeting is really to talk about outreach capacity and the landscape in Nashville. If you know any organizations, especially smaller ones that are doing outreach, we'd highly encourage them to either come to the meeting or connect with Chair Ryan Lampa. We're really trying to get an understanding of who all is doing outreach, and we know that there's a couple, there might be one-off outreach initiatives, and so trying to map the full landscape from street medicine to survival outreach to housing navigation, because we know that there's a lot of folks in the field, whether they're doing it formally or informally. And then the last thing that I know came up at the Homelessness Planning Council retreat was potentially expanding the scope of the Standards of Care Committee. And so I know Kenna Hassler was able to attend that meeting, and I think at their next meeting they're going to be talking a lot about how to dig into some of the issues that y'all recommended for their committee to look at. So I think those are the highlights when it comes to the committees, and yeah, I'll open up to any questions.
If there are none from the members, the only one I had was going to be if we could do a doodle poll for the all chairs meeting as well. And I know on Consumer Advisory Board, we meet tomorrow as well, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And that will be after the Youth Action Board meeting.
Tomorrow we have Shelter Weather Outreach and Prevention, Youth Action Board, and Lived Experience. So if you really want to dig into some COC meetings, tomorrow is an eventful day. I also do want to thank, I've gotten a few emails or responses from HPC members wanting to join committees. But if you have not reached out about that and you do have the capacity to join a committee, we would highly encourage you to at least drop into a meeting and see if it feels like something within your capacity.
Thank you for that, Raquel. So going into new business, continuum of care funding. Gonna be back to Allison.
All right. So I think that everyone is aware that there have been changes happening at the level of the federal government. Several of you are federal government employees. So this is information that we're all aware of. But I wanted to share with you sort of what we know about continuum of care funding at this point. So, I think folks have seen this in the news. There were a great number of executive orders that were issued by the new administration. And then a couple of weeks ago, the Office of Management and Budget issued a memo that basically put a pause on all federal funding to see if all of that funding was in compliance with the executive orders that were issued. So that was a pause on HUD funding, continuum of care funding as well. Those systems were down such that, agencies could not go in and draw down money. That memo has since been rescinded, and we have not received any direct guidance from HUD since that point. We have been receiving a lot of guidance from the National Alliance to End Homelessness, which is a nonprofit that does a lot of policy work in this space. Of course, as we've gotten all of that information, we've shared it with funded agencies. We've shared it via the COC listserv. NAEH has really great concern about funding. They have really great concern about the COC funding that was just announced. It was announced January 17th, so it was in the prior administration. So they are concerned about that funding and about HUD for many years really worked on the process of making the NOFO process, whether it be just every single year, pushing that to be an every other year cycle so that all of these local agencies were not spending so much time every year on their grant application. They could just do it every other year. That's a very recent change. NAEH is really concerned that change may be rolled back. Obviously, we don't have much more information than what is available to all of us through the news. But we wanted to at least touch base and let you know that we're monitoring the situation extremely closely. And any updates that we receive, we will share.
Thank you for that. Okay.
Yes, thanks, Allison. And I just wanted to bounce off of that because I think it's important to share in this space. I think many of you know, but I work for the Federal Office of Refugee Resettlement. And I just want to flag for our community that our State Department funds and most of our ORR funds were completely shut down. So what we're nervous about happening with HUD funds has already happened. For newcomers and refugees. We resettled the highest amount in the last few months nationwide and here in Nashville as well. And we have folks that are in hotels, that are in temporary housing, that do not have an avenue to transfer into permanent housing, or their rental assistance has shut down. I describe it as kind of a light touch rapid rehousing program, but I just really want to make aware to OHS, to all of our service providers in the room, we really need to be doing intentional connection with our 3 RAs here for prevention and diversion, and be thinking about our limited English proficiency access. For folks, are we all using language line? What are our, what are our resources for supporting folks with cultural competency? But I just want to flag that that has happened already in our sector. I would say on average, 70% of resettlement staff nationwide have been furloughed. So we have lost many resources. And I just want to make sure that that's something we're thinking about as a system, and how can we step in and prevent people from losing their housing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for that, Lizzie. That is very much so at the forefront. It's something that we need to be thinking about and ahead of, beyond ahead of it. So thank you for that. To move along to the next item, cold weather response.
A little taller than me, so I need to move that back in. So a couple of things I do want to highlight. I think Jamie asked a little bit about the vouchers and if that's affecting our housing. You know, our team is working on an opportunity to help deploy like other creative solutions, other creative opportunities for housing, because I think as a community, we had become so heavily focused on vouchers and voucher subsidies, and even the limited amount that we received each month was not going to get really move the needle. So there's other creative ways of like shared housing opportunities that we can discuss. Our team's working on some documents, and we'll be able to help share that publicly as we gather more information. Also, I do want to say that there is a screening March 20th, Beyond the Bridge. I think we have royalty here in the house with David Langle Martin. I think he was a part of that. So it's on March 20th. I think there'll be some national leaders here and a panel as well. Some more information that we can share by way of constant contact. And then also, I did not talk about the hospitality hub that's coming to Nashville from Memphis to help with the Roadway Inn project, the interim gap housing location that we have at Roadway Inn. Thanks to Council Lady Johnston, she's not here. She really helped to push that forward. So thank you all for that. Also, would like to say thank you to my awesome OHS team. You know, this year was the first year that we operated cold weather shelter, and it was a push, pull, and drag it across the finish line, but we were happy to do it. Our department consists of a total of 35 to 40 individuals, and it took every last one of us to help with getting that. Because not only did we operate cold weather shelter, we had to operate the business of the city and to help with leading efforts of our continuum of care. So we have an average of about 7 to 10 more days, and looking at the previous years from today forward to the end of March, it's an average of about 7 to 10 more days that we're looking at, and actually 2 more days this week. I would like to thank Jaha Martin and her sorority for bringing a host of welcome kits and welcome pats packages, Angie Lawless and Meredith as well. And then I think Open Table dropped off some packages as well. So in your package, you have some information on cold weather shelter. So typically, we operate when the temperatures are 32 degrees for 3 consecutive hours, and then you see the hours of operations for the normal hours of operations. And that's what's in our community plan. And what we as a department do is extend hours. We have 3 different tiers. So that's tier 1. Tier 2, we can extend hours beyond 7 a.m. or before 7 p.m. if the temperature calls for that, because you know, we would want to be able to provide those services. And then we have tier 3, which is the critical time for 24-hour operations. And those things are not listed in our community plan, but that's what we use as an internal tiering of when we need to make decisions. I also would like to show that previous years, the average attendance per night for the year 2023 was 199. And this year we are at 250. I need to update that. Let's see. We've operated 34 nights thus far. Previous years, the average was 40 to 41 nights. And this year we've operated 34 nights. We still have February and March to go. Some had questions about our staffing plan, so I'd just like to show you here. We use 6 to 8 security guards. We have a 1 to 22 guests per ratio, and that's because this is some of the most disabling, some of the people we serve have the most disabling conditions, and so we like to have a really low ratio. And then you'll see here that this year, because our department is 35 and we still have to operate throughout the day, 40 people, we still have to operate throughout the day, we really leaned heavily on the health department. They had some behavioral health staff that actually was there typically 3 to 4 per night. and MNPS. They worked with us as it relates to helping in the kitchen, helping to, we utilize some of their cafeteria workers to help in our kitchen. Delta T is a organization where we can have skilled people to help with filling in gaps. Metro Social Services sent a couple of staff one of the days. And then Archangel is the security team that we have there. One day we opened a little bit earlier and needed a quick turnaround for the building, a quick turnaround for cleaning the building and preparing food and getting our staff there. So the mayor's office came several days. The mayor actually served in our kitchen for 3 days, which is exciting. And he brought a host of council members to help as well. And then also I'd like to acknowledge the neighborhood health. Neighborhood health came and provided vaccines and a little bit of medical attention as well. I know there was some questions as it relates to medical team. What we do know is the system we have in place with neighborhood health is if we notice something at night, we would make a text and a phone call to Brian Hale, and then we can provide an Uber in the morning. But what we noticed is they were really wanting that service immediately that night, and if it wasn't available, then the next morning they were not really interested in that service. But what we have worked with the health department on is getting some pre-certified RNs and medical technicians to be able to provide that afternoon care. We were working on getting they have to do the pre-cert there. I know that was one of the other concerns as it relates to us needing medical providers there on site. So let's see, I'm going along. I do want to show that, talk about volunteer opportunities. Several asked me, how can they get involved? In previous years, when Metro Social Services operated cold weather shelter, our department really helped with the logistics and then also helped with the WeGo, having staff down at the WeGo bus station. And so this year we were responsible for both or all three operations, logistics, WeGo bus station, and cold weather shelter. So ways to get actively involved is to help with that volunteer opportunity at the WeGo bus station. We actually had 4 volunteers, and I would like to say Volunteer of the Year goes to Liz, your council, or your peer here. She was there multiple nights helping to gear people into the right bus depot or the bus bay so that they can get on the right bus, and that was very helpful. We appreciate that. Others have asked how can they volunteer actually in the cold weather shelter, and we've worked with a little bit with legal, a little bit with our insurance as far as Metro is concerned. And there's a lot of concerns there because of the population that we serve. And the recommendation was MOUs and agreements in place, having certificates of insurance that name Metro as the insured, making sure that the individuals had medical insurance before they came, and then waivers on top of that. So I felt like that was a lot and a lot to require, but the WeGo bus did not require those things. And so when we think about volunteers for Metro, it's a little bit more cumbersome. There was an RFP that went out 2 years in a row for cold weather shelter, 2 years in a row, and there were 0 takers. So OHS graciously stepped in and filled that void. And so this year we will modify that RFP. I think there's a couple of churches that's reached out and they are interested in providing that. I'm not sure if anyone can provide it on a large scale as in using that one building or if it would need to be broken out into smaller locations. It's just hard with logistics and transportation when you have smaller locations. So more to come on that soon. This plan was updated regularly. I actually wrote the end of year plan to send into Metro Council, so it has some information there. Last couple of things to discuss would be next steps, right? We're watching this week. There's about 2 to 3 days that we're watching closely. Previous years, there was about 7 to 10 days from this point on. So we know that we're not out of our cold weather season. Also, the third would be the development of an emergency response team. And so that would consist, typically I'm on the phone with Room in the Inn, Nashville Rescue Mission, other locations, the transportation down at WeGo, Office of Emergency Management. I don't know how I didn't give thanks to them early on. The Office of Emergency Management, Chief Swan and his group has really helped us throughout this season. And so looking to bring that team together so we won't have to have emergency calls, but maybe scheduled calls throughout the week where we're checking in with each other. Also, and that, purpose would be to build capacity to ensure that the facility can remain open during long stretches and ensuring that capacity at other shelters are at max capacity. What I failed to mention is this is the overflow shelter. This is the overflow shelter. What we find is it's oftentimes used as an alternative or preferred choice, not the overflow. Here in Nashville, the bed utilization rate at the Nashville Rescue Mission and other local shelters are not typically at max capacity when we open our shelter. And so you'll see in the data actually shows where some have stayed at the Nashville Rescue Mission room in the end and our shelter throughout the season. And then we have data where other shelters' numbers are low when our numbers are extremely high. And so as the overflow shelter, in the upcoming year during the downtime, that group that I discussed early on, Nashville Rescue Mission Room in the end, WeGo, Office of Emergency Management, I think it's important for us to really look at how to ensure that people are utilizing the beds that are already available in our city prior to coming to an overflow shelter. So it's not lost on me that people come to the cold weather overflow shelter to sleep on cots or mats when other shelters actually have real beds that they can utilize. So we're going to have to work on that intensely. Action plan for 2025 is to deploy that RFP once again. We will deploy that RFP. If there's no takers, our department, it was an honor. We call it Chick-fil-A de-escalation tactics, Chick-fil-A hospitality services. It was an honor for us to serve, but it also gave us the insight on how dire some of our unhoused situations are. And so people that's lived outside for an average of 10 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, coming into a shelter, 40 nights out of the year, means that they have been exposed to the elements far too long. So things that you'll hear us push would be how do we write the system of, preferred alternative versus overflow, the RFP that will be deployed, also increasing our encampment surge. There's several that when they come to cold weather shelter, they're asking, when are you guys going to start back housing people from the encampment? So I'm looking for more from that as well. Also identifying more permanent housing, right? Permanent supportive housing is essential here in Nashville. And so our budget really covers a lot as it relates to alternative options, creative solutions, operating costs for PSH and or non-traditional rapid rehousing funding opportunities. And then a couple of other things. I guess there were some concerns from an individual that volunteered there that talked about, I think one was as it relates to the amount of staff and our leadership team that it took to run and operate this. OHS is full of servant leaders and was happy to do that. We fully were prepared, and we knew early on that when our team was going to have to take over that, it didn't come with a lot of additional staff and that it was going to be an all hands on deck. What's important is, we have leaders at our team that was willing to do it, but also we have leadership that's skilled in certain things, right? Myself and Allison Cantway have ran year-round shelters for many years in local nonprofits here in Nashville. So we were well skilled to be able to run this operation. And then also our AD of finance, he's actually used to be a GM at a restaurant. So not only is he running our financial books, but he's also Serve Safe certified to ensure that funding opportunity, to ensure that our food is prepped in right temperatures and all of those things. So that's exciting. I think there was some concerns as it relates to the soap and hygiene kits. And I named about 3 organizations that dropped off hygiene kits. And then soap in the bathroom is a unique thing. If you've never ran an emergency shelter, we have refillable soaps that would come up missing nightly, right? And I'm happy if people need soap, let's make sure they have it. Then we moved to automatic soap that you plaster to the walls. So it's like an automatic, you stick your hand under. And guess what? They were getting ripped off the walls because, people need soap, right? Then we moved to hand sanitizing stations outside, but continued the efforts that was on the inside because we wouldn't know that they had been stolen or removed or commandeered, I guess is the word I'll say. We didn't know that until someone would say there's no soap in the bathroom. So then we had hand sanitizing stations outside along with the kits that was readily available. I think that a couple of other concerns is the bathrooms, having broken bathrooms, right? This is a very old school. When I hear people that are like 60 and they're saying, I went to elementary school here, that tells you how old this building is. So it's an old school that's designed for 250 people that are shorter than me, right? And we are repurposing it for our unhoused neighbors. And so sometimes the plumbing can't keep up with the demand, especially when there are inappropriate things being flushed down the plumbing. So there's a couple of times that we had to have Lee Company come out. There's a couple of times that I should say, Scott Potter and the Metro Water Department, his team, they actually came out and really rescued us because there was something that was stuffed all the way down to the sewer line. And so not so much the plumbing is the issue, even though it is the old school, even though it is designed for people shorter than me and 250 at the max. But it's also not designed to take on some of the things that was actually flushed in the toilet. So I have pictures of things that was going down, like trash bags that you'd pull out and they're taller than me, or toboggans that were being flushed in the toilet, pill bottles, different things like that. So the plumbing was a concern, not so much two parts. One is it's an old school. The second is some of the items that was going down there. So we started getting super creative, asking people not to take their bags, take their hats off whenever they go into the bathroom, to leave the things at the door so that wouldn't be tempted to go down the toilet. I know I'm going long, but I just want to kind of hit on some of the concerns that was there. I think the threshold, there was the concern as it relates to the threshold in our community and our community plan. And so, as I discussed earlier, we have a tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 is normal. Tier 2 is extended hours. Tier 3 is overnight and 24-hour operations. We had 6 days of extended days, and we had 4 days of 24-hour operations, and they were all in a span of January. There's 31 days in January, and we were open 24 days in January. So if you see my team, yes, they're tired, but they're excited to serve. We have cold weather shelter coming up on Thursday. Just want to make sure I hit all the hot spots. But, so another thing I do want to talk about, I've had some data here from the average number of people that we have served per night is 250. Also, the average across our community for the season, meaning like cold weather shelter, room in the inn, Nashville Rescue Mission, includes 1,099 individuals. And so when you look at the beds that we have available in our system without the overflow shelter, if everyone chose to utilize the shelter on really, really cold nights, we probably would not have enough beds. But on nights that average here, looking at our data, we do have enough beds without the cold weather shelter overflow system. And I think that's something that we would use, a number that we will use to look at when we're looking at overflow versus alternative and secondary shelter. We looked at some data. I know I'm going long, guys, but we looked at some data to discuss emergency shelter operations, interim housing operations, and permanent housing operations. And by far, it is much cheaper for a city to invest in permanent supportive housing operations. And so I know there's a big push. I keep getting the emails and the calls on, we need more shelter. Why are you not putting sheltering in your budget? Because I really want to focus more on the permanent supportive housing. It's cheaper. It is playing the long game and the end of the housing crisis, not putting people in an emergency shelter operations at the bottom of a housing crisis resolution system and still not having a way to deploy or exit them out into permanent housing. I know that was a lot, but I wanted to be comprehensive. Any questions for me?
So I don't have a question, but I just want to say, as someone who had the honor of being able to just play a very minute piece of this puzzle to contribute bags for those who were in the shelter, me showing up and being able to see it in action, I personally just want to take the opportunity to salute your team. I will say it was, and this is from a person who has also worked in a domestic violence shelter. I've worked in a homeless shelter prior, a family shelter. And I will say one of the things that just absolutely showed me the type of leadership that you exhibit and your team has is that when I showed up, Antonia, it was just like, I'm like, she's acting like she's at Disney World, literally. The attitude, and that was on the 20th, and I knew at that point they had a string of long days. But the attitude and the humbleness in which you all have served when people are in crisis, someone was having a crisis then, and even the security in terms of their response to how they were managing folks. I mean, and let's just say emergency shelter is not an ideal situation for anyone. So I do acknowledge that. But the way in which it has been ran and the way in which people are serviced with the dignity that they deserve, I mean, it is a phenomenal thing. And I know that there are many complaints that come to you all, but I want to make sure you understand that from someone who has witnessed this and has gone to the mission and Room in the Inn, who also doing a phenomenal job, because the reality is oftentimes people who are utilizing those spaces, you all, that's a conversation that as this community, we will have to expand at some point. They are at a place where when April says they are our most vulnerable, I have concerns about even what their decision-making capacity is. And so even when there is this push to collect our data and to get these folks into HMIS, they don't have the capabilities of even appropriately completing a full assessment. So we will not ever probably capture those individuals because they need a higher level of care than what an emergency shelter can provide and what permanent supportive housing can provide and what independent living can provide. And so I don't know the answer to that. I suspect that at some point we would need to look at what a assisted living and skilled living facility looks like on a housing first model, with CTI being more so physical therapy, occupational therapy, mental health for those who are not able to live independently. But again, I just want to make sure, and I will continue to figure out ways in which I can contribute. I think we can all contribute what our complaints are, but how do we contribute towards the solution? And again, I know that oftentimes when we think about, I'm like, April, of course, is the director, but I'm calling her that day, working out logistics. And for me, I just think that is something that should not go unnoticed and unnoted and appreciated by this body. So thank you all.
Thank you.
I'd like to piggyback on that, just being down there at the bus terminal. Thank you guys so much. It's going to make me cry because they really felt love. They were excited. They were like, even on Christmas and everything. And so to hear the respect and, that they were like, Miss April hooked somebody up with some shoes and they were just so excited. But from someone with lived experience, it was so cold. I don't think I could think straight. And there were some that they didn't know that there's a warming place to wait on the bus even. They didn't know, okay, wait, the bus drivers weren't clear on the communication. They were, and so to know that they were like, okay, one of them said, no, I got my bed there. It's my bed. And just hearing that small piece might just be nothing to some people, but to hear my bed, and they were so lit up and they were like, I get to go back to it, was unbelievable. And they said, they care and they're like family to us. And so you guys treated them with so much respect and so much comfort. I just have to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And for doing it that many days and 24 hours, so much. And didn't skip a beat with the passion you guys gave. So thank you.
I wanted to just, spend some time thinking about solutions, right? And that's genuinely my intent here. And thank you to April, thank you to OHS. I know you guys were there for many, many long hours. I'm comfortable to say that I was the individual that raised some concerns. I had the opportunity at Mayor O'Connell's request to volunteer for several nights kind of during the thick of it. And I think when I'm offering those concerns, it's truly to say, how do we as a broader community support you all? Because it was stretched thin, right? I think my major maybe questions for this group and as a system is to say, is that building right? I know we've used it for 3 years. I know it's really hard to find. I know I was a part when I worked at the city, right? I was a part of the building search process. It's tough, but also the plumbing could not keep up. People come up to me and say, would you be comfortable sleeping here in this room? Would you be comfortable using these bathrooms? And I had to honestly say, no, I personally would not. And I think if we truly are trying to treat people with dignity, I understand we don't want to invest resources away from PSH, but I think we can collectively raise the standard of how, the experience people are having. So if it's an issue with the facilities, then how can we brainstorm? If it's looking at other locations as a task team, if it's looking for other funding, I personally am committed to being a part of that solution. And then also as well with the staffing, I know you guys did the absolute best that you could, but working 8 to 5 and then working long hours overnight, I don't think anyone is at their best, right? So again, how can we support you all with this RFP season for the next season? Is there anything as a council we can do to support spreading the word, engaging stakeholders, seeing how we can build that capacity just to raise, again, that kind of quality and standard of care for the next season?
Thank you all for the compliments and the accolades here. Our team really, really needs them. They don't really need them. They know that they're appreciated, but it makes me feel good to know that you guys are appreciating our team on that level. There is a feasibility study for this location where like mixed use is at play. And so anything from library to community center to some permanent housing on top of large open bay area with showers, which is exciting, and storage, which is exciting, is in the framework. So of course, anything with Metro, right, the feasibility study, this property belongs to General Services, not so much to OHS. But I do want you all to know that there's some work that probably will be before council members. I don't know if it's this budget season in a capital campaign or next budget season, but there is some work to be done to this building. Also, we were looking at the Lowe's hometown funding as an opportunity to do an upgrade for the bathrooms there, but some of it is, weighing the options of how much do you invest in this building when you know at some point it's going to be changed and demolished into something else that has space for the emergency operations of a cold weather shelter. I think that probably starting off, we could lead with how do we help in our housing crisis resolution system ensure that all of the beds in Nashville are filled before we have to open an overflow shelter. So then that way we don't have a lot of traffic of people moving, being displaced, carrying their items from one to the other. So I appreciate that. We're open for all suggestions and recommendations. I think in the shelter committee, we have this conversation quite often, and definitely we can bring this up as well. For me, I will always support much more PSH instead of a temporary solution that may be able to be, the need may be able to be met by what we already have in place here. Thank you all so much. Sorry I went so long, but it's a very important topic.
Were there any more thoughts or concerns on that topic? Anybody? I do want to say I agree it takes every last one of us for solutions, and everybody's point of view is valid. We do appreciate you, Office of Homeless Services, for taking on this lift. I do feel like you all were overcapacitated and that it could have been more community help to be able to alleviate that. And I just want to see if it was a debriefing already with the Shelter Weather Opportunity Committee, with the SWAP Committee, And also, it needs to be a debriefing about cold weather shelter inside of the all chairs meeting as well, so that we can start to make real solutions within the community across the board. So that's my thoughts on that process as well. So next is going to be lived experience cohort. I know what that was. Um, we we have a lot coming up as far as what we're doing right now is really building our foundation and getting to a point where we can deploy lived experience as being professionally developed and also just being able to be deployed into all the committees just to strengthen, just like I just mentioned, the shelter system itself and also prevention measures as well. And we're going to be power mapping here coming up, just how that looks and building in partners that will strengthen us and also vice versa to be able to offer our expertise in a manner where we really have a pulse on the ground of what's going on. Just for an example, I know during pit count, we witnessed, I think something that was very unique to come up, but it was a person that they stayed in a family home, but they were not necessarily homeless, but they were able to help us navigate and find a great number of people that were in a place that we never would have known to be able to find, to be able to count them. So just being able to utilize people as navigators and guidance throughout this system and the things that we experience on the ground can help improve systems, just as I stated in my welcome. So really, I didn't have anything really for the lived experience cohort. I know we have the collaborative applicant switch that's coming up. So we have to find innovative and creative ways to sustain ourselves, even towards permanent housing for our cohort members. And I believe that's the goal at the end of the day, to get them into permanent housing and to get away from poverty for lived experience and to be able to bring that new wave of lived experience in and build them up as leaders on repeat is what the lived experience cohort is about. So that's all I really have about that, to be honest. Yeah, any thoughts, questions, concerns? You could go ahead, Jamie.
So I remember in our past meeting, so as we know that there, if you have lived experience in homelessness, as long as nobody on the HBC gets paid for being in the meetings, because that's Metro ordinance. But we've been using, direct payments or gift card payments to our lived experience members to attend, the committee meetings and community meetings. I believe at one point that with the changes to collaborative applicant to Metro, that these people now qualify under as Metro, as basically council board members, and which would have to mean we'd have to cut off those kind of payments. Have we gotten any final word on that exactly? And what are we going to do if we have to cut that off, or to be able to try and motivate or incentivize the lived experience community to participate in the process?
So, Metro Legal will clean me up where I'm wrong. But unfortunately, because of Metro's charter, paying people on boards, commissions, even subcommittees of boards and commissions is not allowed. I think for 6 to 8 months, we worked really hard at trying to find alternative solutions and alternative options on how to make that an option, an opportunity, and all the way to sending an AAQ up to the federal government to ask. And as we stand today, Metro, it's still not allowed here in Metro as a paying boards, commissions, or subcommittees. And also, because it's federal funds, there's a lot of information that, like lived experience payments that used to live on HUD's website, it's all disappearing at this point. So as far as people with lived experience and all of the other topics that are connected to executive orders. A lot of those documents and supporting documents are no longer available. Our team has went in to try to retrieve some of those documents, and they are no longer available. So we only have the guidance to stand on or to lean on of what Metro's board and commissions are recommending at this time.
Okay, and I do want to speak on that as well, because I feel like too, the Youth Action Board is also compensated as well, so they will also suffer from this, not just the cab itself, which we were already at a deficit, and I speak on poverty all the time with every last one of us. The hard work that we've done, we've been working over 2 years, paid with the cab sporadically at times, but at least, you know, we were deemed to be paid, recommended by HUD Cloudburst. From that recommendation, we also saw where the downsizing of the HPC was an option, and that has been before us. When it comes to the Consumer Advisory Board and payment, it's always a conversation that disappears, and it needs to be very important, and we need to be poured into the work. And I don't think the work we need to do that anyone would accept being forced to volunteer for it with our lived expertise, it deserves to be compensated. I'm going to say that. Just as anyone else working any job that is a heavy lift. And like I said, it has not been televised, the work that we've done. I feel it's very invisible, unfortunately. We don't even have pictures to show what we've been doing. And we have made significant impact on the work that we have done, and being able to revamp, be on the swivel, and just go with the flow and show up. It deserves to be compensated. And I know when the collaborative applicant was MDHA, just myself, for an example, we were able to be vendors. There are solutions to this if we sit down at the table together as a community and figure it out, versus just saying absolutely not, and the pay will be cut off again, maybe for the third time. Because we went through steps of this and people being halted from being paid before. So I do want to address this, and I want to do so as a community in a manner that is together, in a manner that is transparent, and in a manner that is no harm to us. And again, I want to highlight that not only the cab will suffer, but the YAB also will stop receiving payments. And people depend on that, like for life to happen. I can attest to what has stopped in my own life. And I do so much as a chair in the community, again, that is not even acknowledged. So I just want to be real and transparent, and that's what I came into as Homeless Planning Council Chair. My tagline has always been transparency and no harm, and that's what this statement is about now. And I stand for all the people that not only I will suffer, they suffer even more than I will. So just thinking about our families and just the people that we can really help by being inserted into the committees as we've been strategically planning about, why continue to delay us being able to be folded into the work? It helps no one. And it actually, again, puts us at a further deficit than we're already in. So just supporting us, even if it does not come through Metro Nashville government or Office of Homeless Services, thank you for being a partner. But even if we are not compensated through those means, again, like I stated with the lived experience cohort, we're already working on our own alternatives, and we should freely be able to now be seen, be able to produce our own media so people can see what we're doing and not be hidden. And again, be folded into the work. So that's my thoughts on this. And I would love to sit at the table with the leaders that can actually be accountable and make it happen for us as a collective, because we deserve that and we have been doing the work. Thank you. So, so the next thing is going to be point in time count debrief. And I believe that's going to be, we have a statement, sorry.
Sorry, just real quick. Do you guys have an estimate of how much funding goes towards compensation?
I can answer. I know for sure we get $20 per hour currently. I don't know if that's what you meant, but budget-wise, we don't have anything. That conversation has not even taken place to even see where we can be with funding. So that's where I've been trying to get contracts started, and we get stopped at every stop. So just to get that on the table and transparently, let's work out how that looks.
And I might just quickly add that we do have the data in terms of what we have paid historically. When there was a peak at a certain point of time where we had over 200 individuals who were engaging with the Consumer Advisory Board, there were 80 people attending a meeting. And so those specific months had we were burning through, I think, maybe $20,000 in a month. We've since scaled back. Kenitha has a cohort of 14. The Youth Action Board is similarly sized. And so usually each person is being paid anywhere from $40 to for one meeting usually, but some of them are on multiple committees or doing work outside of meetings. And so it could be up to $200 or $300 a month per person. But if you'd like data of that over time, we do have the records of how much we've paid out.
In addition to that, and I'm going to get to you just in a second, Jamie, I want to make sure that it is clear that I know with my Homeless Planning Council chair position, I know that's uncompensated because I have been a Homeless Planning Council member for 3 years now. So I am completely aware that would be unpaid. However, the committee work is what we're talking about, and that should be compensated across the board. And with my position, I really feel like I should be able to go to every single meeting that I need to be at to support committees and be able to bring back, and also our committee members to do the same. They would be deployed out into the committees and be able to bring information back, and we're able to plan that way across the board with everything. So I just want to make that clear. I'm aware that the Homeless Planning Council chair position is unpaid. I'm not expecting to be paid for that. But otherwise, we should be compensated for our lived expertise as recommended by HUD. You could go ahead.
So just one more final note on this. So we had Metro Council pass the acceptance of the grant. So when is the effective date where, this means that this is now all Metro, this is Metro show, and it is no longer MDHA, as in, this is the last day we can pay people under this program.
So this was the first, where are we at? January, February. This was signed the third Tuesday in January. And so I believe we're waiting on next steps after it's approved through council is signatures and signing from the mayor. I think we just received that from the clerk's office. so I can give you that effective date. The funds currently still by way of ELOCs, still currently with MDHA, so probably not until that is actually moved over is that an effective date. And I do want to say this is not something that we take lightly. We have spent months working on this, even here recently reaching out to foundations to see if there was any other creative solutions. I think there's other creative solutions of in our charter, there's a charter committee that's, gearing up again to start meeting of how to utilize CAB outside of the charter and outside of the Homeless Planning Council, which could make that as a vendor option possibly, but not any board, commission, or subcommittee of this Homeless Planning Council. So there's some creative solutions there. We didn't just say done and walking away from it. We are still digging. We've dug for like 6 months. Several of you all have received panic or crisis calls from us saying, hey, can you help us make this work by being like a fiduciary or, other opportunities? And here we are. So more to come, but still working on it. When I hear people ask, what's that average cost? Like that makes me feel like there's some heartburn there that maybe would help get this to the finish line. But it still would take, this charter revision for our COC to maybe move CAB out from under Homeless Planning Council to become like more of an advisory board or not written into the charter as such. So we will lean heavily on Metro Legal to make sure that we are in compliance with Metro's rules, but also with the federal rules as well, because things are changing there daily as well.
You could go ahead.
No heartburn on my account. Okay. I'm asking because it's important.
Yeah. And I just want to say also too, we weren't aware about like that council date. So just having us more involved in that process and so we know what's going to happen to us. And also where we can voice our concerns and be the voice at the table. So I think that is huge to incorporate us in and not be excluded or any more stalling on the matter. I know it takes time to get these things done. Very aware of that, but please include us in what's going to be affecting us in our lives. So that's huge for me. And we could go ahead to point in time count, be brief with Allison.
Yes. So we held the point in time count on January 23rd. It feels like a long time ago, even though it really wasn't. This was sort of our first year as a collaborative applicant overseeing the point in time count. And I think in general, we had a very successful count. And I just want to say thank you we had over 100 volunteers, including people in this room, and including the mayor who went out in Madison and helped count people. We are still cleaning the numbers. So we don't have, because sometimes people are accidentally counted twice or, this person was sleeping and then later they woke up and we counted them again. So they're still working on cleaning the numbers in HMIS. As soon as we get those, obviously, we will share them. And we will share them with HUD as well, because that's a major metric for them. One thing that I do want to address is that we did have something happen this year that has never happened before. One of the teams, when they were out counting, did find a deceased person. We don't have a lot of details. Obviously, MMPD were called immediately, and they followed their process. I do know that it does not appear to have been a cold weather death. The team that went out there, we spoke to them that night. We've spoken to them many times since then to make sure that they have the resources that they need for their own self-care. So we talked to them about it that night. They made self-care plans with one another, which was really good, and they were supportive of the folks on their team. I mean, obviously, anytime something like this happens, it's really tragic. And for it to happen on the night of the point in time count is definitely something that we've never experienced before. So I do just want to acknowledge that, that information, the small amount of information that we have, we did share in a press release, I think that the very next morning. But other than that, like I said, we had a large number of volunteers. We had a wonderful kickoff event at the Nashville Rescue Mission where the mayor spoke, and we had, all had dinner together, and then kind of they picked up supplies. We had a big number of supplies. Lots of folks donated. We received donations of food, cold weather clothing, Narcan kits, all kinds of stuff for the teams to take out and distribute. So we're very pleased with how it went. Of course, we have had a debrief with the point in time count subcommittee to get their feedback on, things that can be improved for next year. Does anybody have any questions about point in time count? Okay.
I only had one thought. I was privileged to be a part of Pick Count this year. And only thing that I would say on our team was the need for food. We didn't have any food to pass out for our particular team. I feel like the larger teams had food resources, and we even ran into a person that had peanut butter that was literally frozen, but he didn't have utensils to use to be able to eat the peanut butter. So like just having things like that available to think about that, and also having over the amount of supplies from the previous year, because it ended up being way more people than it was the previous year. So just as a thought for that within Pick Count. Otherwise, I know we have the debrief board for the board retreat. Any thoughts out there from anybody? We do have that packet included. Otherwise, if anybody has any statements about that, we can kind of breeze into the story of progress. You could go ahead.
Thank you. So since we're short on time today, could we consider putting the debrief on the agenda for the next meeting? I think it could be.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, we're gonna, we'll just put it onto the next agenda and follow up then. And if we could have our presenter, Ms. Kiwana Frierson, to come up. And you could use that podium back there, should have a mic.
Hi guys, I'm Kiwana. I am the admin with Bloom, which stands for Building Life Opportunities and Options for Mothers. We are a new nonprofit to Nashville, and our mission, if you'll go to the next slide for me, our mission is to provide a pathway to homeownership for pregnant and postpartum women who struggle with housing insecurity and homelessness. Our goal is to do that through a floral social enterprise model. What that looks like for us is we have a farm that sits on about 5 acres of land, a floral farm. And so through that floral farm, the women will be able to work, do bouquets, things like that for us to sell. We hope to have a floral stand for our community to come out and shop from. And so those funds will be used to support the women, pay them a wage, and also go to savings for hopefully potential homeownership savings. Next. So the problem with homelessness and pregnancy is that women who experience homelessness when they're pregnant or postpartum, they deal with preterm low birth weights. They need neonatal intensive care. They're also more likely to experience severe maternal morbidity, which can include organ failure, cardiovascular collapse, and eclampsia. They're more likely to experience chronic health conditions, mental illnesses, substance abuse. They're less likely to receive recommended prenatal care and more likely to receive emergency care, which often lands them being hospitalized. Often we also see that they experience intimate partner violence as well. That's just something that we've noticed. Next slide for me. So the solution that we have found. This is kind of our program structure. We have structured our program phases to kind of align with what we do. So you'll see that phase 1 is planting seeds. That's the mission and orientation. And what that looks like is establishing stability, growth through orientation, personal goal setting, trust building. That'll include prenatal care, health assessments, gardening, floristry, and setting housing routines. Because honestly, most of our women just don't have that. They don't know, right? So level 2 is cultivating soul, which is stabilization. We focus on establishing healthy routines, self-care, aiming to build physical and emotional well-being. That's normally done through pregnancy, nutrition, and financial literacy. We actually partner right now with Pinnacle Bank, who provides a 6-week course for our women that includes budgeting, saving, building credit, and ultimately, what does it look like for them to be able to buy a home at the end. Level 3 is sprouting, skill building. We're here to enhance confidence and practical skills through hands-on training in floristry, gardening, parenting workshops, mental health support, life skill management, and occupational therapies. During phase 4, we focus on addressing personal and external challenges, aiming to long-term plans and strengthen problem-solving skills. That is pruning and overcoming barriers. 5 is blooming, and in the blooming, it's leadership and independence. In phase 5, we focus on thriving in preparation for transition with the goals of building leadership and demonstrating readiness for independent living. Activities include taking roles on mentorship within the program and developing advanced skills in floristry and business. Harvesting is our graduation phase. In that phase, we celebrate growth. We focus on maintaining stability with goals of securing permanent housing via homeownership while contributing to the community. There's typically a graduation ceremony, access to an alumni network, and providing ongoing mentorship and support. So this is Dr. Lister. Dr. Lister is our CEO and founder of Bloom. She is a maternal fetal medicine specialist with an interest in reducing racial disparities for pregnant mothers. She also serves as the Officer for Health Equity for the Tennessee Initiative for Perinatal Quality Care. She is a self-taught farmer florist. Her love for cultivating flowers first began during the COVID-19 pandemic, where she would arrange flowers to help cope with just the weekly related stress. She now shares her joys of flowers with her Nashville community of local farmers market. So I am Kiwana. I am a maternal fetal patient advocate. And so I just kind of bring my unique experience and passion for mothers, navigating complex pregnancies. I am dedicated to empowering women with knowledge, resources, any kind of support they may need while going through their pregnancy or postpartum journey. My goal is to help create a more inclusive and empowering experience for expecting mothers, especially those facing unexpected challenges. And before I jump to this slide, a little backstory about Dr. Lister and myself. She was actually my maternal fetal doctor. She guided me through a really complex pregnancy. And so this moment has just allowed us to be full circle. And so I just wanted to share that tidbit with you guys. This is our floral farm as of now. Residents of Bloom program will develop skills of growing, arranging, selling flowers. They'll have employment opportunities, as mentioned. We'll have a farm stand, U-Picks, things like that. You can go to the next slide for me. We also partner with Mending Hearts, which is a treatment facility who specializes in substance abuse and co-occurring disorders. The Mothers Grew arranged centerpieces for their annual fundraiser, which was their Rise Breakfast. And so this is just some of the women and the bouquets they put together. That's just kind of the table in which they, the floral arrangements were on. So this is our newly renovated and purchased property, 156 Babb Road in Jolton. It's about 25 minutes from the Nashville, downtown Nashville. We are still considered Davidson County, although we are in Jolton. This house will be able to serve 3 expectant or postpartum mothers. It's the future site for our flower farm stand. This was our ribbon cutting. We cut our ribbon open house on February 2nd. We had about 80 guests, and since then, we have raised about $20,000. So ways to help is donate through our Give Butter website. We are always looking for volunteers. Sign up for our newsletter, spread the word. We also have floral subscriptions, or if you just want to purchase flowers, you can do that as well. Those proceeds go towards our women and our mission. We are currently partnered with Thistle Farms as well to be able to provide bouquets through their website and through their cafe as well. These are just a few of our sponsorship opportunities. It'll cover the following expenses: the rent, utilities, case management service, landscaping, and food. So 10,000, some of the things that we honor with the 10,000 is that your name will be mentioned in the event, in closing ceremonies of any event that we may have. It'll also be featured on any of our printed materials for our events. There will be a sponsor booth during the event. Also on any relevant social media posts. Your name will also be mentioned on a plaque inside of our donor wall. $5,000, kind of the same thing, sponsored on our donor wall, a booth during the event, social media posts, a sponsor name mentioned during the opening and closings of our events, as well as on our printed materials. Same thing with this one as well, and you can just skip to the next slide. Yeah, so those are the different levels that we have. This is our contact information for Dr. Lister. That is the email, president@momblooms.org. Our website is momblooms.org as well. You can also find us on social media, Facebook or Instagram. We are available on both at momblooms.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Kiwana Firestone. And be sure, if you can, take a look at that website because it shows the before and after of the home and the renovations. It looks beautiful in there, and it's so warm and welcoming for the mothers to just alleviate that stress of being out there without a home and be on the journey towards permanent housing. And Ms. Firestone has some brochures for everyone that if they would like.
And I'll leave these back here on the podium, so if you want to grab one on your way out. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. And that's certainly a story of progress. And at this time, we'll go ahead and adjourn. And you all have a phenomenal month. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.